Hey there, and welcome to episode 29 of The Mom Game. I'm Emily Jones, and Julie Dobbs is not here, but she's here. She's at home. Husband in the bubble and had some childcare issues, so we're gonna.
Here we are.
We're gonna make this work.
I'm in my home bubble now, while my husband remains in the Edmonton bubble, because sometimes things happen. But I wasn't gonna miss this show. I was so excited for it because
yes,
special guest.
I am so excited for this. It is my pastor and friend Lance Marshall.
Hello.
Yeah. So hey. How's it going?
You made it 30 episodes with notable sports figures and wonderfully talented people from around the Metroplex, and then now it's me.
And here we are.
Hello, fans.
Okay, so a little backstory on how this came to be. So you texted me a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I got a new phone. I didn't have the number. You were texting me about some other podcast that you were a guest on. And
that's right.
You passed along my information, and I was like, is that okay? And I was like, oh, sure, cool. By the way, who is this? And you said, it's Lance Marshall. And I was like, oh, my pastor, Lance Marshall, who is listening to the Mom Game.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Immediately, all the things start flooding to my brain about the topics that we've discussed and the words that I've said. And
yes,
to know that my pastor is listening made me feel a little like I think I did the emoji.
There was a grimace emoji.
Yeah,
and a facepalm emoji.
And then you did a praying sign of the cross for me.
I did,
and told me that you were praying for Julie too.
That's
which
right.
is very kind of you.
I need to know a little more about that quickly. What specifically did I do or say that made me elicit your prayers, which I'm very thankful for, by the way. I always need prayers. Always.
Oh, I think it was more of a general. Comment of well-wishing, acknowledgement of all of us in the midst of our humanness. We can all use a little divine help.
One thing I said where you were like, "Oh gosh, she's going on my prayer list."
Yeah, right. I had to pull over the car. I did, and I had to turn to Psalms, and I had to get through a couple. I was worried about you, Julie.
Okay, so I want to know. I want Julie to know, and I want our audience to know. I know, some about you. I don't know everything about you, but you're the. What's your official title? Because now it's even fancier.
I am the co-pastor of the First United Methodist Church in downtown Fort Worth.
Yes, and this is our church offers many different services, types of service worship, and you lead a service called The Gathering, which my family goes to, and I love. And I've just gotten to know kind of your story, and I thought you would be such a great person. Actually, it was Julie's idea. She was like, we should have him on. And I'm like, yeah. It was Julie's idea.
Someone that is knowledgeable about life and has all of these things that you've seen and heard about. I'm sure getting to where you are now, I was just thinking this is perfect because a lot of what we do on this show is just talk about life and some of the problems that we face. And somebody with your perspective, I feel like would be very valuable to us. So thank you so much for coming.
Well, that's why this is such a good show, and it's why I watch.
You clearly have a direct line to God as well. So, I mean, we might need to use you on occasion for
and
I
don't know much about being a guest on shows, but I think we can all agree that the confrontation of Press Box Hot was really great and brought a lot to the table. And so I thought, here's what I should do. I should just look up Emily's Twitter feed and then read back through. And then no, I'm not going to do that.
I was like, I'm sweating. No,
no.
It's been good lately, Em. It's been real good.
Yeah, it's been real good. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why your response to knowing that, quote unquote, you're a pastor.
Yeah.
I mean, the position. Why that would make you facepalm or why that would make you cringe or grimace emoji. I'm curious about that response.
Well, and that's a great question. I think just because I probably would treat you normally, without knowing that you listen to the Mom Game, you listen to The Ticket, you follow me on Twitter, I might treat you the way that I act around my kids. Okay? So around my kids, I clean up the language, I don't cuss. You know what I mean? I come at it from a little softer angle. And so I feel like previously with you, and now I don't think I will do this anymore, but I would have come
You're
at
on
you
your best behavior.
as I'm on my best behavior with, I just don't, I need to clean it up at church. I mean, I don't see you much outside of church, so I don't need to be dropping F-bombs, at
in the
church.
narthex outside the sanctuary on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's the only way I can describe it, is that I just kind of cleaned it up. I cleaned it up for you.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's so interesting because I think the reason that both of you, but Julie, by the way, I'm a huge fan. So you're not here. I wish I could look you in the eyes and tell you I'm a really big fan.
I was sad to miss you today. Thank you.
I grew up in the area, and so I've watched Fox Sports forever. I've watched hockey forever. I've watched local sports here. I'm a big fan of the ticket. I was trying to do the mental math. I'm at 20 years, and I'm probably well past the 10,000 hour threshold. And so,
Wow.
And your addition to the station has been great. One of the things, when podcasts started coming out and I started listening to other sports programming, I didn't realize how much it meant to have women in the conversation. And so when that got added to the ticket, even just this step, it's been really great. And so I'm just a huge fan. And I'm really glad you're back from Bora Bora. I'm sorry that you had such an awesome vacation, but I'm glad that you're back.
Yeah, it was lonely there. I'm glad to be back too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Was it Soroy that passed you in the plane or something? I know it's complicated.
Yeah, we were always going back and forth and the reservations, figuring out scheduling of our little huts that sometimes got difficult. But we worked through it all.
Well, yeah, and so I'm so curious because something that is in the water, because I know I've never said anything along the lines of, okay, well, to be a person of faith and to be a good person and all that requires that you be sanitized or happy, smiley, shiny, or fake at any point. And in fact, I think where I was getting to when I started was, I think both of you have really carved out a lane in the local market, and particularly in the mom game with, I'm going to be authentic with you. I'm going to be myself. And a lot of that is stuff that's really put together, and this last percentage of it isn't, and I'm authentically myself. And I think that's the reason why I would watch. I wouldn't be interested in watching the mom game or following your Twitter feed if it just read like a press release.
Right.
And so I just want to, I want to lift up that those parts of you that are the real parts are not a defect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're not, even though they're the parts of you that are, you're right, probably aren't going on the Christmas card,
right?
Or are not going on display in certain ways. But that's the thing that people love. That's what makes you worth following or listening to.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, and that does make me feel better. And I will say, like I said, you the way that you conduct yourself in our church and the way that you conduct yourself personally, it lends itself to that openness. But I feel like so much of the time with religion in particular, there is that you have to come in a certain way. And you've taught me that that's not the way that, and I feel like too, I grew up Baptist. My mom was Catholic. Like, I wasn't looking for a Methodist church. I wasn't looking for a certain religion. I was looking for a sense of spirituality, and I was looking for something. And I think that, with what you're able to do, which I'm so impressed with, is the fact that you're able to communicate in a way where people feel like they can relate the Bible to their actual lives in 2020.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. The idea that, okay, church is where you're all put together and where we all act perfect. It's where prim people go and all that. That's what's killing the concept of church for so many people.
Yeah.
And exact opposite is true. And I'm not going to turn this into a sermon, but that's like the exact opposite of who Jesus was. Like, he was notoriously getting in trouble because he wasn't following these rules of propriety and behavior and appearance and rule keeping and saying things other people didn't think were appropriate and so he's let's just put it this way, he's not interested in people who have their act all together and are prim and proper at all the times. So be absolved. Let you receive absolution. Yes, be healed from whatever it was that bad news that you were telling yourself. Yeah. The good news is that you're wonderful, even when you're snarky.
Well, thanks.
So, and maybe especially when you're snarky.
So, Lance, just for a little bit of background about me, like, I grew up going to an Episcopalian church. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, I went a little bit more when I was single, living in Uptown, and, made my own decisions, and it was easy to hop out of bed and go. And I married somebody that didn't grow up going to church. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have anything against it. It just wasn't part of his routine. Sundays were hockey days in Canada. And it hasn't been something that he has felt the need to really make sure happens for our family. It's something that I think is important, but at our stage in our life, and I feel like a lot of people maybe can relate. I know some moms that can relate. What do you say to somebody who maybe is just struggling? Like, so I feel like I personally really need that spiritual outlet. I really need like a higher being, something that I can pray to and believe in, especially right now, like in this world and all of the craziness going on. It's too overwhelming. I need to talk to God about it or know that he's there, which is, I think, how a lot of people are feeling. But when it comes down to like a family and being in charge of getting these people to go on Sundays, like, what do you say to somebody who maybe is having the struggles that I am? And our kids go to church school, but right now, like, I don't have a solid church. We have a church home where they go to school, but we don't go there. So I said a lot, but I think you catch my drift probably is like, what do you say to people that might be in my situation who maybe can't make it in every Sunday, but want to have this outlet?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I want to say is that that's my story. I've shared, and Emily's heard portions of it before, but I grew up in a family that was members of church because that was the polite Southern thing to do. You had to have your membership at one of like the 4 acceptable denominations. And I'm pretty sure like the Methodist Church was closest to my grandma's house. And so that's why they were members there, or something. Wasn't like a deep theological reason. And then they kind of put me through the steps. You know, I went to vacation Bible school and stuff along those lines every once in a while, and Sunday school every once in a while. And then confirmation is a routine that happens in the life of a lot of local churches, which is kind of an early 5th or 6th grade kind of coming of age thing. And then that's a real hurdle to cross. And once that was over, for us, it was soccer that got in the way, and tournaments and things along those lines. And so I just didn't go. And then additionally, and the really popular in the area that I was growing up in were churches that I felt were a lot more judgmental in the way they treated people who didn't belong or participate. They were a lot more us versus them. And so just kind of what I was gathering from the people who went there was like, I'm not interested in that. And so I, to the point where high school, young adult, I was not only non-Christian, I was a very solid non-Christian. And so my life changed in my young adulthood where, and I've shared part of this story before in sermons and things. I just don't want to bore Emily because she said to hear too much of this before.
No.
But I was very...
She brought you on. She brought me on.
Well, thank you. So I grew up in a very successful part of the DFW Metroplex, like one of the wealthier, more privileged parts. And I kind of grew up in a community where everyone had 5 or 6 bedroom houses. And that's what all my friends had. And I really absorbed from that world that life was about success. And so get good grades, go to a great school, graduate, start a great career, and then repeat, do what your folks did. Marry someone, buy a big house in a big suburb, have a good career, et cetera, repeat. Like that's what life's all about. And so I graduated from college early with a plan to go move out and got a great job in the Chicago suburbs, and things were really moving along. And then just really quickly, I just realized it was really unfulfilling. And there just needed to be something more for life. And I was a good person. I wasn't like a lost or hurting person. I was just a person who was looking for more. And the story of how I got there, my first answer wasn't like, I need more. I bet that's Jesus, and it's a church on Sunday mornings. Like that wasn't the journey for me. It actually came through other writers and podcasts and things like that. So Julie, one of the things I would say is the good news is not trapped in the building on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. That's one of the first things I would say. Things that fill your soul, communities that that help you feel connected to the divine, to make sense out of this world, are not delivered in 20-minute snippets from a guy with a microphone on his face on just Sunday mornings. So connecting with what is ultimately true and makes sense of this world and is vital and gives you spirit and gives you hope and helps you face day 65 on your own? What is it? How are you surviving? I mean,
what's 7 times 8 plus
56? Yeah, so we need to pray a hedge of protection around your family. This is unreal.
And my kids need it.
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, to give you something, the energy to get through the day, right? That's sometimes that's what we need when we pray. Sometimes we need direction. Sometimes we need just sustenance. You just need the strength to get out of bed, right? If I were you, every time I would hear the noise, I would just freak out because I have to go get up and do it again.
Oh, yeah. On repeat.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to tell you is it's not trapped in a Sunday morning.
Okay.
Right. And there's writers and speakers, and the next best way to do it is to find the people who have found what you're looking for. So I didn't end up being a Christian because I saw a really great billboard on the side of the road, or because someone invited me to a Bible study or something like that. I became Christian because I decided I really wanted to have a life worth living, and I wanted to be resiliently joyful. And who are the people around me that seem to have that in their lives? And it wasn't the party people, and it wasn't the drugs people, and it wasn't the wealthy people. It was the people who had this personal spiritual foundation to their life, and the ones I found happened to be from the Christian tradition. And so I wanted some of what they had and what they had experienced, and so I went looking for it. And so when it comes to you were saying things like kind of where do we go and what do we do? Well, the first thing I would say is who do you, and you don't have to answer this question, of course, but be looking around and be like, who's got the good smell on them? You know, who's the people that I want a little bit of what they've got? I want a little bit. And then, like, spoiler alert to people who are just thinking that she's fun. Emily's one of those people. I would challenge Emily. I talked about your authenticness earlier. I think probably one of the ways in which you're the least authentic is you probably don't share the extent to which you're generous, kind, and giving to others. That's probably the thing that's the least part of your like social persona, because it probably would come off as a little too look at me. I imagine I know what you're doing there. But,
for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, I met Emily when she volunteered to teach and serve at Vacation Bible School. Not like sending her kids to Vacation Bible School, but
and we were the actors. We put on skits.
Yes, we put on skits. So during the All-Star break, with it, which is back in when the before times when baseball was 6 months long, and you had 3 days off. Yeah. What you did with those 3 days was put on gross old church robes, like the shepherd's robes and stuff, and act in plays for like third graders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
it was
that's
fun.
like that's the kind of person that Emily is. And so so find the people who have like the good vibe on them.
I found her.
Yeah, right? And then
Y'all are sweet.
And then when I tell people about evangelism, because that's the thing that gets people really upset, because the only concept people have of evangelism is what they've seen, where it was really judgmental. Like people who kind of they only think evangelism is yelling up to someone in the parking lot of Grapevine Mills Mall and asking them, if you died tonight, what would happen to you? Like, that's their only framework for evangelism. And I tell people all evangelism is just saying, like, hey, I found something that's really, really life-giving to me, and if you want to know more about it, this is where I found it, and this is what it does for me. That's all it is. And so what you're asking for is the reverse, Emily. It's where's someone who's found something that it's worth getting up for on a Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. Because that's a high barrier to cross, because Sunday morning sleeping in is amazing. It's amazing. It's really good. And so you have to find someone who's found something better. And that's not going to be a place that shames you, and that's not going to be a place that scares you, and it's not going to be a place that hurts you or makes you feel less than. It's going to be a place that connects you to something that's true and powerful and real. And that is worth getting up for. And and if you haven't found it yet, that's okay. You just got to move to Fort Worth.
That's it.
I know. I wish
That's all it takes.
It might be a little much for Sundays, but I'm already convinced and wish I could come.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a hockey team, right? Yeah. Are the Brahmas coming back? Do they need a video coach?
They need a video coach / reporter / cheerleader.
Exactly.
I don't know when this is going out, but Kelly got one last night, didn't he?
He did.
He did. Yeah. He got an offsides call. It was like a pretty obvious one, but. That being said, I mean, you've still got to make the call and feel confident about it. He said he yelled it down to he has the walkie-talkie. He wasn't actually yelling, but he had the walkie-talkie, and the second they crossed the blue line, he was like, offsides. And then they ended up scoring. So those moments, you're probably like, yes.
Come on.
And they gave him some love on the broadcast.
They gave him a lot.
Yeah. They gave him some legit love.
Yeah, they did. His family sent me the Canadian broadcast from that they were watching, where they actually like talked about him and his record would like.
Yeah, that's the one I heard. They played it on the ticket today.
Yeah, I heard it too. Like 12-1, and that one was wrong. Like that's awesome. Yes. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's one cool little way where he actually feels like he does so much, but to actually like see it on her reverse a goal like that, it's kind of cool for him. So. It's good. Thank you.
It's cool.
Thank you for that.
It's cool for me because I even think I know you. Like, that's how cool it is.
Yeah.
So
we do know Julie.
Well,
it's a good.
Well, yeah, that's something that even on the ticket, like I struggle with, and the podcast has been great. There was a point where I was like, how much do I talk about life and myself and like reveal the good and the bad and the ugly? And there's a point where you just can't. You, Emily, I know you're, you've thought about this and dealt with this too. It's like, there's a point where you're just like, I am who I am. Like, I'm just going to be who I am. And that's one thing I've loved about the ticket, because in reporting on TV, you get like, the 20-second snippets to like do a report and then you're like done for the night or whatever. And so the ticket's been so fun to just be able to talk. And I've brought Kelly into my world and now everyone knows about him too, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to show your personality. You know what I mean? Especially when in a career where we've just done, you've been so polished and so whatever to be able to have that. And I'm grateful to the Rangers for allowing me to do that, because there's a lot of teams want everything buttoned up and very professional, and then there's me, and so it works out.
Let's be great.
Nicely.
Let's be great.
Let's be great.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
What's the thing in the clubhouse, Emily? Has that had to retire? I guess. What was it called?
The what?
The thing in the clubhouse where you do the fun stuff with the players.
Oh, Ranger Most Likely.
Rangers Most Likely. Did that have to retire?
Yeah. I mean, just for now, it's just on hiatus. It'll come back.
I need more Ranger Most Likely in my life.
Okay. Maybe I'll do one special one just for the end of the season, just for you.
And Cookie Talk.
Oh, Cookie Talk. Oh,
Cookie Talk.
We may have apple pie with cheese on top talk, which has devolved into a crazy thing on the Rangers broadcast. Okay, well, a few more things just on your personal stuff before we talk any further. You are a cancer survivor.
I am.
Not just a one-time, but a two-time.
Yeah, just showing off. I went back for another one.
Showing off. And you were also crazy enough, after surviving cancer twice, to again risk your life and adopt not one, not two, but 3 children at one time.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just trying to... I don't know how to describe it. It's when you say it like that, it's really overwhelming. I didn't do it all at once. Yeah, in my early 20s, or my mid 20s, I thought I had allergies, and so I went to a doc in the box, and what I thought was allergies was a collapsed lung, and it took a long time for them to figure out what was wrong with me, and I'd been like a marathon runner, and the concept of being sick didn't make any sense, but it ended up, after weeks in the hospital, it was stage 4 cancer they discovered, and that was July 30th of 2009, and I'll never forget the date, because the next day I lost my health insurance. My health insurance expired, so I was a stage 4 uninsured cancer patient. And then a week or a couple weeks later, the company I was working for went out of business, and so I was an unemployed, uninsured stage 4 cancer patient. I was engaged at the time, and August 22nd was our wedding date, and that was a Saturday. And that Monday, there was a bank error, not in my favor, and the bank had withdrawn one of the checks that my company had given me that had bounced for insufficient funds, and then the bank accidentally double drew it, which zeroed out my account. So I was an uninsured, unemployed, stage 4 cancer patient who got married without a dollar to his name.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And so that was 2009. My identity got stolen later on that year, and I was like, good luck for you, buddy. I hope it works out better for you than it's working for me. Not a great haul on the old Social Security pitch there. And then I got better. I went through 6 months of chemotherapy. I had lymphoma. It's a blood cancer, and stage 4 means it's spread throughout your body. It's in really bad shape. And it got better. Ended up having a child, which wasn't supposed to be possible for us. That was really miraculous. My wife and I had a child, and then 6 weeks after he was born, I went for a routine checkup at the doctor and found out that the cancer had come back. And that's a recurrence. And at the kind of cancer that I had, having had a recurrence in that time frame, the chances of me living 5 years from that time were a little bit worse than 40%. And
oh my God. Jeez. So how much time between when it was gone and then it came back?
It was gone in the beginning of 2010 and came back at the beginning of 2012. So I had about 2 years in remission. And then I was actually thinking about you on the way over here, Julie, because the treatment for my cancer that second time was what's called high-dose chemotherapy. So I'm sure y'all have experienced cancer with some friends and family and things like that. And chemo is just poison. That's all it is. And it's a pretty blunt instrument, and they give it to you, and it's killing the cancer, but it's also killing the rest of you too. And that's why hair is falling out, and you're sick to your stomach. And one of the things it kills is your bone marrow. And so particularly with the kind of cancer I had, the blood cancer. And so what they did this next time was they said, okay, we're just going to give you so much chemotherapy that it's going to hopefully kill all the cancer, but it's going to certainly kill you. And the way it's going to kill you is it's going to kill your bone marrow. But before we do that, we'll take out a bunch of your bone marrow and freeze it. And then we'll give you all that cancer. You'll die slowly in the hospital. And then right when you reach zero immune system, all that, then we'll give you a transfusion, a transplant of your own bone marrow back in. And that's what will help you recover. And so it's called an autologous bone marrow transplant. And that was in July 3rd of 2012. That's called my new birthday, or my resurrection day if you have a kind of attitude like I do. And so I was thinking about you, Julie, because I was so immune compromised, and I had an infant. And infants, I don't know if you guys know this, are very dirty and very prone to disease. And so I was in the hospital for a month. And then when I was home, I was at home, but I was gloved and masked up, just like we all are now, because I was so immune compromised that my wife had to be alone for so much of that. She had to be alone while I was in the hospital. She couldn't come be with me. She had to be kind of on her own so I've just been really thinking about you, because I saw how hard that was for my wife. And like, you've got two little kids. Like, this isn't a joke. It's really hard. Right.
I say that it takes two people to make a baby for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it takes two people to help raise the baby. But that is like, what an amazing story. And first of all, I'm so glad that everything worked out to where you're okay. And even more so because you're somebody that's giving back so much to the world. So, wow. Thank you for telling us that story. And I don't know if you knew, did you know that I had breast cancer?
I didn't. Now that you're saying that strikes a, yes. Now that you're saying that, I remember that had been mentioned.
Yeah. It was like it was a while back, and then I don't talk about it all the time. So if you're like if I'm new to you from the ticket, then you might not know that. But yeah, your story sounds quite similar to mine, although I didn't have to do any sort of, operation like you did. That sounds just like so traumatizing.
Did you have to do chemo?
But yeah, I was diagnosed when I was 28, and I was dating Kelly, and he proposed while I was going through chemo. I lost all my hair, double mastectomy, like the whole thing. And we got engaged and married like through my battle, I guess. And then once I got through it and I knew that the cancer was gone, then we were worried and wondering about having kids. And all of a sudden, here comes Ryder, like with like totally unplanned out of nowhere because of the chemo. You're like, can my body even do all of these things that it's supposed to do? And then here we are now. I'm 7 years cancer-free, 2 kids. Obviously, like that recurrence is always something. If you've ever had cancer, it's always in the back of your mind. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and I imagine this is how you feel, not to get like super deep here, but I feel like we're having a good deep show today. It's just why you make the most of every single day. And I never had that perspective on life. You just don't think about things the way you do after you've been through cancer and you've been face to face with maybe not knowing how long you're going to have. And so I know that's why I personally try to live each day to the fullest for myself. Now, one thing I want to work on is like, how can I give back? How can I make the most of my time here, give back to people and that kind of thing? Because right now I'm just trying to keep, my sanity and all of that. But I'm sorry you've been through all that, but I also love when I meet somebody that we can share that with, because there's not a lot of people, especially at our age, who have been through what we've been through. So I'm so happy that you're here to join us and that we've met.
Yeah, we were the young people at chemo. Wasn't that a different? We were the ones.
Everyone's like looking around, like, are you here for this? Like, what's the deal here?
Did you have a port?
I had a port. Yeah, I had my scar. I'd have to tell you.
Come on. I've got one.
Right there. Who's got the best?
I've got some good ones too. Yeah, I've got some good scars. My trick was, I tell people now, because I always got sick whenever my port got accessed, and they tell you you can't tell, but you can. And so I always tell them you get to eat candy whenever they access your port. So that way you kind of like Pavlovian, you're like, at least I get jelly beans.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. And it was always like a weird taste.
It's a weird taste. Yeah. So they flush the port out with saline and you can taste it. And it's really weird. And those little triggering things, like if I smell saline or stuff like that, like I'll get sick to my stomach again.
Really?
Yeah. My oncologist said back in the 80s when the drugs weren't as good, the anti-nausea drugs, that people would see him years later in the grocery store. They would turn the corner, see him, and just barf.
Oh,
because it was so Pavlovian. Connected.
Man.
I get that. Whenever I go back to the office, I get sick. I just can't be around it. So
not a fun time.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for your drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, get some Zofran around whenever you need it. So I was that was part of my story, and we like Julie mentioned, part of that journey is you just don't know what's going to be possible. And so the second time around, my wife and I were saying we don't know if our family's done growing or not or yet. It's kind of hard to imagine that right now. We're really just focused on survival. And so we had decided, okay, well, if our family, if we want our family to grow and it's not happening the old fashioned way, there's the medical intervention route, which is an amazing gift from God and it's wonderful. But we were feeling like that wasn't really right for us. And we would, if we decided we wanted our family to grow, we'd pursue the adoption route. And so a couple of years ago, my wife really initiated the conversation. I wasn't as sure because it was hard because we felt so satisfied by having one. Like our son's amazing and our life was full. So it wasn't out of any sense of lack, but it was just like, we just love being a family so much and we love parenting so much. And our heart feels like it has space in it. So it wasn't like we're missing anything. It's just we have more space in it. And so we'll start exploring adoption. We're really interested. And I think like most people, we didn't have an imagination for adoption outside of the kind of mental image of a young woman who needs to make an adoption plan for a child and finds a parent family, and the child is born and given to that family. And raised by that family. That was our only real imagination. Quick side note, the average person who makes an adoption plan for their child in America is 27 years old, and it's her third or fourth kid.
Really?
Yeah. Most people kind of have this imagination of like a high school junior or something. And it's actually usually a person in their 20s who's already raising a number of children.
And then decides that they can't.
And then needs to make an adoption plan for a future child. Yeah. And these are things you learn when you start actually getting into it. And and the international adoption is, of course, an avenue, but it's also one that's really complicated for a lot of reasons. Ethics get really complicated. And when we were going through the program, and we went through an agency called Gladney. There's a lot of amazing agencies in Dallas-Fort Worth, and Gladney's kind of the OG agency. In the Industrial Revolution, that's really when there was an explosion in children that needed homes in America. And in the cities in the Northeast, families that couldn't care for their kids would literally put their kids on trains and send those trains down south. And it would stop in rural farm towns, and families would go and adopt children off those trains, usually for like family service. It's like a chance to grow your family, to your farming, and you need more help, and et cetera. And obviously, as the train went on and on and on, the quote unquote least desirable children were the one who remained on the train still. And the end of the line, the last stop of the train, was Fort Worth, Texas. And they would stop there, and a Methodist minister would pick them up and put them in his horse-drawn wagon and help them find families. And so that was the start of what became the Gladney Agency for Adoption.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and so that's a lot of people in the area have connections with Gladney. And one of the things that Gladney lifted up to us was, hey, at any given time, I think the number right now is 6,000. I could be wrong there. But I think right now, today, there's 6,000 children in the state of Texas who are free and clear for adoption legally. They're waiting for a family. To be their forever home, and they just need someone to say yes to them, and just no one has. And there are a lot of studies that show that you age out of the foster care system at 18, and you stop the family who's caring for you stops receiving financial aid. So usually they're kicked out of the house. And statistically, the children who aren't adopted by the time they turn 18, within a few years, it's statistically very likely that they'll be addicted, imprisoned, or dead. And so there's a really strong need for families to do that. And then additionally, they started saying if a child is a race other than Caucasian, it's less likely that they're going to be adopted out of the foster care system. If a child is older than the age of 2, it's less likely that they're going to be adopted. And if a child is part of a sibling group, it's less likely that they're going to be adopted. And so we just want everyone out there. I mean, this is kind of a group conversation, right? And they're saying we just want you to think and see if you could be one of those people. And, one of the things that I say over and over again is that when I laid down in the hospital to die in July of 2012, and then ultimately was saved by the bone marrow transplant that saved me, I kind of, the image that I have in my mind is I laid down to die, and I got back up again. And what got back up was hope and love and optimism for the future and a resilient heart. And what I let die in that bed was fear and anxiety and worry and doubt and the tendency to try to control things. I just really think like that died in the hospital that day. Which is what you're saying, Julie. Like I want to live, right? And
we want to be here for this.
Yeah.
Can I just say, like, I can't imagine a better mindset and a better like attitude to come out of that. And it's just so amazing. I mean, that's so amazing because so many people couldn't handle that physically or mentally or both. And for you to have that mindset and make it out of that situation like you did, and now just enjoy every moment is just awesome. I'm so happy that we got to meet because it's just really, really inspiring.
Well, thanks. Well, now I'm going to tell a bunch of stories about me being a terrible parent. So don't worry. It's going to circle back around.
Let's get to the real parent talk.
Yeah, let's get to real parent talk. That was sweet. I would like everyone from our congregation to now sign off, and I'll see you on Sunday. And now we're going to get to the real talk. So yeah,
being real, man.
Being real. So my wife and I were having the conversation, and so I feel all those things, and my wife feels like it's worth being married to me. And so,
which is a beautiful thing.
It was a very beautiful thing. And so we started talking about it, like, yeah, I mean, and it's not the kind of thing that I could ever say we were like, yeah, gung ho, absolutely. It was more the kind of thing where we were like, our heart can do this, and our heart wants to do this. And we've got a million doubts, and we have a million fears, and we have a million concerns, and we know we're not up to it. We are, faith people. So we have a really strong conviction in that of provision and being cared for, and that you don't have to have the answer to how things are going to work, but just if you do the right thing, it will work. And so we said, okay, God, we'll take two.
Two babies. Two kids.
And one of the pieces of advice they give, which is pretty consistent, is that if you're going to be adopting children into an existing family, that you let your biological child remain the oldest. And so adopt children younger than your oldest biological child or youngest biological child. That's a piece of advice that's pretty consistent.
Makes sense.
So at that time, our kid would be like 7. And so we said, we'll take a couple. And they called, and they're like, well, we'll
take a couple. Yeah,
we'll take a couple. What are you off the top?
Sure.
It's like it's wine or beer.
Yeah. And so and let me know how I'm doing on time, Emily.
No, you're good. I just was checking on children. Sorry.
Check on mine while you're there.
Okay.
So and they, they ask questions about like, well, what are you comfortable with as far as conditions they've experienced, what they've been through in life, kind of the struggles they have, their backgrounds, etc. Have you all ever seen the movie Instant Family?
No.
It's a really great movie with Rose Byrne and Mark Wahlberg, and it's a true story about the director wrote it, and he and his wife went from no kids, they adopted 3 kids. And so it's a story of a family that adopts 3 kids and what it's like. And there's actually there's a wonderful scene in the show that there's a lot of, actually, I would highly recommend it. It's a good movie, period, but it really gives a window on what we experienced. And they just kind of, it even talks about like, we wanted, long story short, it's really tough for transracial adoptions for those kids and sense of identity. And so we wanted to be sensitive to that. And like, is that in the best interest of the kids? And in the movie, they say that. They say, we're a white family and we want to be open, but is it in the best interest of the kids to be in a transracial adoption? And the social worker goes, okay, we'll just put whites only on your application. And they're like, no. That's not what we meant. And so we had to go through that whole journey. And it's like, we really are open to that too. And we know that's a whole extra level of having to learn how to parent and provide and nurture kids. And so they called and they said, we have a wonderful 5-year-old boy and 2-year-old girl and a 1-year-old boy. And would you be interested in learning more? And we said we would. And then it kind of went back and forth. And they go, okay, these are your kids. When when can you meet them and when can you take them? And we were like, because they're not in a great situation. And so like, we would love it if we could drop them off at the weekend. And we were like, we need like a minute because we need like to get some beds and stuff.
So we need some stuff.
Yeah, we need like another bowl and fork in the kitchen. Like we need some stuff. Yeah, like, and that's where your brain goes. It's like, do we have enough toilet paper? Like you're not even thinking what you need. And so it was actually really amazing. We're part of a large church, and we just literally started throwing things on an Amazon wish list. Our church bought literally everything. People went above and beyond with gifting some incredible things to provide for us and help us bridge that gap. And we met the kids for 1 hour for a play date at a CPS somewhere else in Texas. And I guard a lot of their details, obviously, from public. There are forever kids. They're permanently adopted, but for safety reasons, I don't give out very many identifying factors. And then a couple of weeks later, on August 6th, I woke up, I had breakfast, and I was a family of 3. And by lunch, I was a family of 6.
Unbelievable. And the kids are so adorable.
They're
so adorable.
And that has saved their bacon a couple times, how adorable they are. They are 10 out of 10.
It's cute, right?
Yeah, they are 10 out of 10 photogenic, and they need to be sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I made the decision really early on that I wanted to talk about the adoption process, and I wanted to advocate for adoption for people, and I would also be totally honest. Yeah. I would never snow somebody into it because that's not fair. And so I will tell you that it was all that cancer stuff we talked about, and the pain and the hurt and the fear and the doubt and the loss. This has been more so.
And why is that?
Because you chose it.
Yeah.
Because you picked it. And you never chose cancer. And Julie never chose cancer. I never chose cancer. So you just kind of, you can kind of gear up for it. And you never have to doubt, was I right in doing cancer? Like, was that the good call? How does that impact everyone else in my family? Would they prefer if I hadn't had cancer?
Right.
You don't ever doubt, like, how are my in-laws going to handle my cancer? You know, so all those doubts and questions are really complicating. And it's been so good. And my life is so much better and so much richer.
Because it's been what, 2?
It's been 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah. It's been 1 year. August 6th is the anniversary. And it's been the most, so we adopted, we now have a 2-year-old boy who's the most 2-year-old that's ever been. He's the kind of 2-year-old that people look at and go, we should call this terrible.
This is where it starts.
This is what it is. And then we have a 3-year-old girl, and then a kindergartner, a 6-year-old boy, and then our biological son who's 8. And our 3 children are African-American sibling group, and they're wonderful and they're sweet. But y'all come on here every week. I mean, y'all have been so good on the show about talking about how hard it is to parent. Mm-hmm. I mean, just parenting is tough. And I feel like, and to use like a sports metaphor, like we just didn't realize how easy our first one was. Mm-hmm. Like I think we got kind of an overinflated sense of self. Like we describe it as we were like really good quarterbacks in like 2A football.
And then we bumped up.
Yeah, and then we were like, we're doing great. Like we're setting records.
People are running at you a lot harder, taking you out.
Yeah, we beat
stronger.
We beat Winthrop by 12. I mean, we're awesome. And then we're all of a sudden at Texas and we're just getting handed. Like it was, and that's what it's been like. And and so, and not because anything's, I mean, it's just, you don't realize how many things are going on in your brain subconsciously that like keep you mentally in the game. And when you're still trying to build love, when it's not just taken for granted, you have to build love, and it takes time. It takes time both ways. Like they don't walk in the door. Like we had a social worker who was really wonderful and who said to us, and it was hard to hear, but it was true. And she said, you're not their first choice. And it's true.
Yeah.
And you need to know that. And you need to hear it. And you need to let that be okay. You need to let that be true. Like it's not their first choice, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Their first choice is that they were handed this unfair start to life. And their first choice should be to have the kind of lives that y'all's kids have.
For that to have worked out.
And that just wasn't it. And so they're making the best they can with no tools whatsoever, because they're little kids and little kids.
We hear your story and we're like, that is so amazing of you. What wonderful people. But the kids don't understand that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They don't look at you guys like, oh my gosh, you guys are saviors. I was in such a terrible situation and you walked in and now look at us. Like, isn't this great? No, they're thinking about the tough hand that they were dealt and trying to get to know you. So I can only imagine, because having a giant family is hard enough, let alone, kids that have gone through the hardships that yours have and the ages that they are. My goodness, bless your heart. I have a parenting question, because like you said, Emily and I are very candid on here, and I don't know, maybe we complain too much about how hard it is, but it is. It really is.
It really is.
It's so rewarding, and I wouldn't change it for the world, I don't think. But
I would change a lot of things. I have a lot of suggestions to God. I have a whole notebook.
So I'm wondering, somebody who you've openly admitted, that it's a struggle and it's hard for you right now. When I find myself in like the darkest like parenting moment, and sometimes I just feel like I need to scream or I need to cry, and I don't know how to handle whatever is being thrown at me at that point in time. I want to know, for you, somebody who's been through everything that you've been through, now with this giant, precious family, when you are in that moment, because I know all parents know the moment I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. What do you say to yourself? What do you think to yourself to like stay grounded and something that Emily and I can copy?
Yeah. What do you do, and do you cuss? That's what I really want to
know. I have got a pretty tight control on my language. It's not 100%. And
mentally, I want to know what the inner voice is saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I blow up sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I had this point of pride. Like one of the things that adoption has really done is help erase my hubris And
what is that? What is a hubris?
Hubris is pride. It's like false pride, and like
make a note of that.
Yeah.
See if I can throw that.
Yeah,
one
there were some things of which I was, and like one thing I remember, it's kind of like Wilt Chamberlain never fouled out of a game, but he would like, if he was about to foul out, he would just stop playing hard so that he wouldn't foul out. That was like a fault of his.
Your sports references are sick.
Yeah.
I like them.
And so I had a point of pride in that I had never yelled. I did not yell one time with our biological child under any circumstance.
Wow.
I had never yelled, never raised my voice in anger. Well, that streak is way gone. that streak is way gone. If you were to tell that to my 3 youngest children, they would be like, "You're not talking about the same guy.
Yeah.
You're talking about Yelly McGee over here." Like, yeah. So one of the things I've done is snap. Like I've lost it, and
Yeah.
I have gone out the back door and thought I was gonna break the window out of the door.
Yeah.
I shut it so hard. And I have my all-time favorite. We were actually in conversation with some folks who were in a tough part of an early adoption, and they were having the question like, we don't know if we can make it or not. So my wife and I were talking to them from the window of people who'd gone through it, and so we were sharing some of the stories. And one of my favorite stories is my wife was cooking, and we had to move. We had a smaller house, and we had to move moving because it was too small for all these kids. They're in the kitchen. They're all. One of the ways our kids' insecurity manifests is that they have to be around you all the time. They just can't. They don't feel secure if you're not physically present. So that's annoying. And so my wife is cooking in the kitchen. She's on a skillet, and one of them has like one of those. It's the rubber Nerf ball that goes with the basket that hangs over the thing, right?
Yep.
And they're bouncing it, and then we never get mad the first 20 times, right? Yeah. It's when we get past 20, that's when like bets are off. And we're way past 20 at this point, and they're bouncing. And one of them bounces the ball up into the skillet, and it like lands like right in the taco meat or whatever. And just cool as day, my wife just reaches over to the chopping block and pulls out a steak knife and just stabs and stabs and stabs and stabs the ball, and then just puts the knife back in the steak knife, and then hands it to the child. And
she wanted the ball to die.
Yeah, the ball would die. And then like one time we were on a walk, and our 6-year-old son just found a stick off a tree, and we got like 2 kids in a stroller. The 8-year-old who's not interested, the 6-year-old who's like wagging lay behind, and then coming up and wagging, and he's got a stick and he's hitting people and put the stick down. And he's not putting the stick down. And so I reach over and I grab the stick, and like Bo Jackson, I just like break it over the top of my head. I break the stick and I throw it like 4 houses down. Y'all, that was last week.
Kind of good. Like, doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
We know we shouldn't.
That wasn't like this happened one time and I've grown up. Yeah, that was last week. I'm doing my best I can. So one thing I've gotten better at, and this is actually something I want to talk to the 2 of you about. There's an undercurrent in the way that you talk sometimes when it comes to parenting. And it's the question that you're not asking or not saying out loud, but the question is, am I doing a good job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The question you guys are constantly referring to without saying is, am I doing a good job? Yeah. And the answer that I'm here to give you with actual, like whatever authority you choose to give me, I'm here to tell you yes.
All of it.
Because you keep showing up. Because you don't withhold your love. Because you don't withhold your presence. Because one of the things that because because you're there for them, and you're a full human that's present with all your flaws, with all your gifts, with all your everything. You're there, and you're there on their terms, right? What you need. And I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect, but I'm here for you. And if you're doing that, then the answer unequivocally is yes. You're doing a good job.
That makes me feel good.
And you're doing a good job too, Julie. I'm looking at a little screen on the corner of a TV. You're doing a good job.
You're doing a kick-ass job, Julie. You are doing a kick-ass job.
It sucks every ounce of life out of your body, but like, I'm trying my hardest.
Yeah.
I really am.
And the good job is not measured in, are they doing Odyssey of the Mind, and are they in 3 gymnastics classes, and are they in does greatschools.com have them at a 9 out of the 10 school, and are they, are these external measures, or are their teeth as straight as your neighbor's kids' teeth? Or, like whatever, however it is you want to judge yourself against somebody else. The question is, are you there for them? Are you showing up over and over again? Are you not withholding your love? Are you there on their terms? Are you, are you invested with what you have? If the answer is yes, then you're doing a good job. And so the answer to your question, Julie, is how do you stay in the game? In that moment, I can struggle because I'm a human who's being pushed. My boundaries are being pushed. I'm being pushed. I'm growing. But every one of those growths hurts. Right? I'm a way better parent than I was a year ago. but that came from a million tiny difficulties, right? Which
Right.
y'all are so embedded in sports, right? That's a natural understanding. Like that's how you improve is you run to the point of being hurt and ill, and then you get up the next day and you can run more. And so you're doing that as parents, and every one of those breaking points does not mean that you're broken. That means that your capacity has changed.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a good way to put it, that you continue to show up. You continue to show up for your kids, and that it's not that it's that simple, but the fact that you're present with them and that you're trying, and I think that for a lot of kids that they don't get that. They don't have that.
And that's what our kids didn't have.
Yeah.
On top of everything else, the root thing was that adults weren't showing up for them.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of days where things were really bad on their end. And the day ended with, we're going to do better tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We're going to try again tomorrow, and we're going to do better. Mm-hmm. And there's been a couple of days where that was on me.
Yeah.
I'm going to try better. I'm going to do better tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think it's important as parents, especially as, it depends on your kids and how old they are or whatever. But I remember one time I lost it on Henry, and you as a parent, you're the authority. You are in charge, and I am the boss, and because I said so and all that. And he had a meltdown, and I had a meltdown right back with him. And I remember dropping him off at school, and then I was just maybe like midway through the morning, right before lunch, I was like, "F it, I'm going to pick him up." And I told him like, "Hey, I should not have acted that way. Like, I apologize. I am so sorry. Like, I'm your mom. Like, I am the grown up. I need to do better." And he was like, "It's okay, Mom." And they forget stuff. They have relatively short memories. But for me, especially Henry, and he's a little bit more mature or whatever, and always has been kind of always. So it was important. I could see that he got something out of me acknowledging that, what basically me saying, "I'm sorry, bud," and I think sometimes that your kids need to hear that. And I've made more of a habit of it. Like when I do lose it, I'll be like, "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. I shouldn't have gotten upset. This is why I did. And I'm going to try to not get upset in these situations. But this is what prompted me to get upset. And so if we can avoid this, if I can avoid you two beating the shit out of each other on a regular basis, we can avoid a meltdown with me."
What does F it mean? I don't understand.
Stop it.
Okay.
Stop.
Yeah. So one of the things that I
You
was,
have to. You don't understand your language.
Understand what
does
book
that
of the
mean?
Bible that's from.
You're just being mean.
The S word is actually in the Bible, but Bible translators don't translate it that way because they're too embarrassed. So Paul's talking about, I count all of that as S, and they always translate it as like sewer trash or something because they're too polite. So they actually edit profanity out of the Bible. Anyway, so when I was talking to a new family that was on the verge of adopting, and one of the lessons I said I had learned was I had no idea how much I was going to have to learn how to apologize to my children. And
it's a big deal. I mean, you do, because you're just so ingrained in, I'm the boss, and what I say goes, and you didn't do what I asked, and so that's what you didn't listen, and so this is what happens when you don't listen. Well, that's not necessarily what always has to happen when you don't listen. Like, you know what I mean?
And think forward, is that the kind of adult that you want your child to grow into? Do you want your child to grow into the kind of adult that understands relationships as power and obedience, and that understands that that's what it is? Or do you want your child to grow up to the kind of person that will apologize and that will recognize when they're sorry and will make a mistake and then stand up for it, and will prioritize the strength of a relationship and that the other person knowing that they're loved over being right all the time, even if they were right? And so, like, that's the kind of adult you want them to be.
Yeah.
And you can model
and
that.
I've gotten to the point now where if I don't apologize, whether it's to somebody I've pissed off or somebody I've hurt their feelings or offended them, if I don't apologize, I can't move on. Like, it's in my dome forever. Yeah. And so I'm like, I have to say it and acknowledge it to move on. And this is probably for another, but that's what, marriage wise, like Mike just kind of wants to be like, well, we're good. We're fine. Yeah. And I kind of want to like, let's delve into this. Why did you say this? And why did I say that? And why did we respond this way? And, there's the older that I've gotten, the more I want to figure out why situations have occurred, or why we're having a disagreement, or why something keeps happening. And I feel like with kids, it's been easier, obviously, because they're younger. And then I'll have to tackle Mike next. Not literally.
Can I give a piece of unsolicited marriage advice?
Please.
A major difference in most couples that I've talked to, and this is typically along male-female lines, is one party wants to talk about it right now, and the other party needs to gear up for the talk. And so a thing that can be really helpful is saying, I would like to set a point in the future that we will talk about that thing.
Okay.
We don't have to do it right now because
Yeah.
you're not feeling it. And like, I know that you kind of want to process.
That's smart.
And so
that's brilliant. And it's sometimes hard to do in the moment because
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk, like you said, I want to talk about this now and I'm upset, but I feel like you can gain so much more if you would just do what you said and make an appointment to do that.
yeah.
Emily,
advice.
I have some good advice too for you.
Please, all the advice. I'll take it.
Send your husband to another country for 8 weeks and then you won't get in a fight. We haven't had a fight for 8 weeks.
And then when he comes home, you just leave him with a long list of things to do.
And then you leave the country
Head
for
to
a while.
Head to the spa and come back in a week and everything's going to be great.
Like
Yeah.
we haven't really argued about anything. I mean, I'm holding a giant grudge against him, but he'll deal with that when he gets home.
We're going to work on that for 20 years.
Oh, that's hilarious.
How much easier will it be if they win the cup? Like, does that give him just like a lot more? It's like, look, I had to go win the Stanley Cup. Like,
I think so. I think he'll be like on cloud 9. I'll be on cloud 9 for him and for the team because I've been around this dang team for so long too, even before I married him. So I think we'll both just be so happy and it'll almost be like that ultimate goal that he's all of these like hours and just crazy schedule. It's all been because he's like had this dream. He couldn't be a player. Obviously, he wasn't, fast enough and all of that to be an NHL skater or player, but if he can achieve that like ultimate goal of his life, then I feel like we'll check that off the box and then everything else will just be like,
gravy.
Everything will be better, everything. The playoff bonuses help a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we're just, we're 1-1, you guys. So we'll see what happens in the next few games. The Stars, I think, really have a shot to do something awesome right now. I am feeling like we might get, not that I like talking about possibly winning the cup, but we might get gypped a little bit on this whole celebration tour. So that's something that's annoying because I saw today, like they wouldn't be able to take the cup home. They'd have to, whichever team it is that wins would have to keep it in the city where they play. And like, they would have this shortened schedule of where they get to celebrate and how long, because the next season will start in just a few months. So instead of having a whole year where you can like fly it around wherever you want, it'll be condensed and in Dallas. So I'm like, all right, well, we better have like the best parties ever in Dallas, I guess, with masks on and whatever.
We have a seat right here in the Vocal Now studios.
Yeah.
So we can just put it right there.
Do you still get to go to Vinnie Paul's pool?
I hope so.
Isn't he no longer with us?
Is he no longer with us?
I think
I'm
I'm pretty sure he's no longer with us.
Well, I want to do something
God
like
rest
that.
his soul.
Yeah.
Something like that. I want a giant fountain or a pool or, Alex Ovechkin in the fountain last year, just like celebrating. I want to do that.
You need to take it in the Zen bin. That's for sure. Take it in the Zen bin.
100%.
Well, Lance, this has been fantastic.
Thank you.
We kept you way longer than I told you, I think, originally, but I could talk for another hour, multiple hours with you.
He'll have to come back and
we need to make
there's so many other things we could talk about.
You're the official spiritual advisor of the mom game.
I would be happy to be in your Oprah rotation.
You know what? Because what would be fun is if we took if we solicited, if people have questions for you, I feel like you're kind of like a Yoda. You're a little bit of a Yoda.
Well,
you know a little bit about everything. You taught me a new word today.
The cancer stuff and the adoption stuff. Like the cancer and the adoption all on its own, that's like just such great stories. And so many people would, I think, want to delve into that even further. So, and then we haven't even gotten to all the other stuff in life. We could talk more parenting and talk more relationships.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk at some point, and we'll talk later about like grieving, because I know that's something that's really hard for all of us, for both of us. And so you'll have to come back on for sure.
Well, and I have questions about the spiritual needs of professional athletes, and so because actually I'm gonna, as a teaser, we can talk about this next time.
Okay.
But I think the language that gets written about you all the time when they're talking about this unique role that Emily plays in the life of the clubhouse and et cetera, and the language they always use is maternal language. But what I've come to realize the more I read those articles is what I think is what I imagine I'm hearing is that in these young men who are so evaluated. They're so judged. I mean, they live under a microscope that none of us can imagine. That I think what you're providing them is not a maternal figure, as much as it is unconditional love.
Yeah.
Like what you're offering some of the most scrutinized people who are least emotionally equipped to handle it because they're in baseball, you're like separated from your family at what age?
You're far from home.
Especially if you come from the islands or something. I mean, like you don't have these tools and what they find in you is unconditional love.
I hope they do.
And acceptance.
I hope they do.
And someone on their side, which is not a maternal need. That's like a spiritual need. And so it's interesting in a way. I want to talk about your role as the unofficial chaplain of the Texas Rangers.
Oh my gosh.
Because I think that's what's actually happening.
I think that's a turn I don't
for next time
anyone saw coming.
I can help you. It's all right. You can text me questions.
Okay. Awesome.
So many new honorary roles.
I know. So no, this isn't honorary.
No, mom game now.
Lance is the official spiritual advisor.
I'll be
of
the mom game chaplain.
Yes, here we are. We're right here. Okay, well, this is so much fun. Julie, prayers to you. Prayers,
Thank you.
honey.
Send them
From
send
everybody.
them.
Oh, one more quick thing. Lance did text me like last week, and he was like, "Just for fun, I'm going to show up in a full like church robe. What's it called? Your
it's called a robe.
Oh, okay. like what do you wear? Like what you would wear?
A robe and stole.
And see what we say.
Just to see what he would say.
Yeah, with a big pew Bible.
Yeah,
just
right.
Just
like
walking
we just
in.
assume you go through all of life like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so glad. What verse are we starting with today, guys?
So
I want to know.
This has been great. It's been so fun to have an open conversation with you. I'll start dropping F-bombs everywhere except for church.
What an honor.
Yeah, so this has been fun.
It's so awesome meeting you, Lance.
It was
thank
great
you
to
so
meet
much.
you, Julie.
All right, Julie, Godspeed. As the
Thank you.
official spiritual advisor of the mom game, you have to do the mom game out. So
Yeah,
all
mom
at
game
once.
out.
No, you do.
Mom game out.